Mute. Hello and welcome to Season 3, Episode 5 of Fabrically Speaking Live. I'm your host, Claire Rowley, inventor of the Creative Feet line of sewing machine products. And we had a little technical difficulty today, so I wasn't able to send out any pre-notices. I also have to figure out how to bring up the chat. I think it's going to pop up here any second. When they told me what was wrong last week in an email, I was like, oh, I know I can do that. And I couldn't figure out where to make the update. So where's the chat? Where are you guys hiding? I almost didn't have my phone even. Look at all you though. You're all on time. Like you must have subscribed and or be ready at 2 now. Hello, Tina from Texas. Come on. How do I open the chat? I got this shortcut. Oh, there it is. Please work. Whenever you do something new, you have to learn. Hello, Better Days. How are you feeling? I didn't post in the school. You must have seen last week's post. Hi, Loy Stricker. Karen from Northwest Florida. Why isn't it showing the chat? It's the weirdest thing. It shows it's open, but I can't find it. Maybe it's on this other screen. I don't see it. Very, very strange. I guess I'm gonna close the chat. Hopefully I won't lose you guys. Open it up again. Also, right before I went live, all of a sudden I started sneezing like crazy. There's the chat. Oh my goodness. The learning curve. You used your B? What's a B? What's your B? So also part of why I'm a little bit off today is because I was not going to go another day without doing pressers. So all of the presser orders were filled. Let me put the oh, you got your Caterpillar. And anyone who's waiting on the ones that are in the harbor in LA, they're still in the harbor in LA. Know that I try not to bother them too much because I know they must be frustrated, but they say, it's okay. You can bug us all you want. We know how frustrating it is. So part of the reason the pressers took so long is because Saturday, on my day off, I decided, and I was going to make pressers that day. So I went, I'm going to do my dishes before. And I never ever put knives in the sink, but I did because I'm like, I'm going to do it right now. So I'm not going to be unaware. And then the bubbles hid the knife. And since I never put knives in the sink, well, I just went in and sliced my finger. So I'm able to sew, but I couldn't do pressers because you have to squeeze on this tool and hold on to it, and there's a lot of inertia. And so it wasn't pretty, but I'm fine now. It's I've been approved to just have a little band-aid on it now. But boy, was I embarrassed. And the first thing I did was yell at myself. And I go, no, 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 no. You can't yell at yourself. You got to be nice to yourself. Everybody needs to be nice to themselves. So I'm putting my website at the top and then the school. And we'll get going here on binding. So my eye's twitching, which means I'm at a high level of stress. Also, I got like way too much sleep last night. Can't remember my addresses. There. Yes. Just 2 little stitches. They've been removed. They were removed yesterday. You know, I have to call the supplier. So I should ask Amy. Amy, are you feeling up to be my assistant today? Can you guys remind me at 4 that I have to call where our parts are made? Because we are officially out of creative feet. Because our adapters, we had run out of our adapters. And since they're made here, as all of our Creative Feet products are made in Arizona, I was fine with running so low, but they were like taking too long, so we were completely out. But we're getting them today. But I have to call them to tell them it's okay to leave the parts outside because today's their Friday. And I can't go without them for tomorrow. Now I'm just on liquid Band-Aid underneath. But I need the padding because it's sensitive. All right, so enough talking about me. And let's see what else. I'm trying to get all the orders out. But every day there's more orders coming in, which is what we need. Hi, Lorinda. It's a bad spot too. So every time I went to I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but every time I went to touch something, I had to like use my hand a different way and use this one more, and so my hands were getting cramped. But this morning I woke up at like 5 and was super excited to come in here and quilt. And because it's still dark at 5 and my dogs were not moving, I closed my eyes and I started quilting in my mind, and I went back to sleep, and I didn't wake up till 8. So I would have had 8 hours sleep at 5. Have you ever gotten too much sleep and felt sleepy? So for those of you who don't know, this is a live show where I teach you sewing techniques. And if you don't know me, you're probably going, oh, this is boring. She's just talking about her boo-boo. Okay, so I'm not sure if I glued these correctly last week, and I should probably go over this a little bit. What I'm going to do for sure is the faux piping binding technique, where it appears as if you have piping next to your binding or inserted in your binding. And we can actually insert piping with our pearls and piping foot into, or just as you see this appears to be. However, when you go to turn a corner with piping, because it has a firm cording inside of it, I have a long thread that's stuck. Like that. If you try to use this and turn a corner. You can on a pillow, you know, but it ends up not being a 90-degree angle. We could do something like that as well. Add decorative cords and trims along the edge of your bindings also. So to make it easier to have a piping appearance, we don't use piping, we just use fabric. And you may not be aware, but the actual official definition of piping is a folded fabric sewn in a seam or beside a seam. So when you look in the Creative Feet Technical Guide and Workbook, which is available at creativefeet.com under products and books and videos, I talk about piping, and one of the piping is corded piping and that is the reason is that we talk about corded piping under the pearls and piping foot, and regular traditional piping is done with the satin edge foot. We cut our piping out last week, and the way you cut it is you have one piece. You're actually going to take two different fabrics and make one binding out of two fabrics. And my brain always wants to make the binding that you see a lot of, the bigger piece, but that is not how this works. How this works is the bigger piece is the one that you want as the binding, and this is 1 3/4 and 1.5 inch strips, and then we're going to sew them together. But before I sew them together, first I didn't have long pieces because I just had a fat quarter here for this one. And that's just not long enough to make a continuous binding that goes all the way around this square. It wouldn't be long enough for a quilt either. And even if you have gigantic fabric, you will have to miter your pipings to go all the way around a full-size quilt. I'll tell you what, this looks so much prettier in person than it does in the photos that I took and put in the school. I am just really happy with it. And so I'm going to do more of, I'm going to maybe make some pillows like that for my living room to match this. Okay. I was like, well, maybe I just won't go live today because I'm so disheveled. But you guys have seen me on worse days. And you always seem to forgive me. Okay, so to recap how to join your fabrics together for your miters, pick up last week's Fabrically Speaking Live, which if you don't know, we have playlists within my YouTube channel. And in playlists, you'll see one called Fabrically Speaking Live. So it would be season 3, episode 4. At the end, I show you how to put these fabrics together. But I'm going to briefly go over it just to confirm that I've done it correctly for myself. I feel like, oh, that's not, it's just drawn on. All right, here we go. Why isn't my transition button switching? There we go. You know what I quilted in my sleep, you guys? I quilted a line going like this, and then a bee, and then I dreamt another bee like on a flower. So I don't look stressed at all. It's because, you know what? I just don't get stressed anymore on the show. Just can't. Been through so many disasters, and it's so much better than it was in season 1 that I am only grateful, even if I struggle. So last week, I put these two fabrics together, and what you're seeing here is a line that I drew, and this is held together by our liquid-based glue, which is really not a glue at all. It's just water-soluble stabilizer in a bottle, and this is some of it on the outside. So when it dries, it just looks like water-soluble stabilizer that's dry. That is what is in this bottle. Pretty cool, huh? So it'll wash out whenever you want. It's acting like the whole light, though. Can't get it off. Oh, I went to turn on my space heater last night and I pushed the button and I shocked it and it would like shut down and not turned off the power on the house. I am full of electricity apparently. So what you see here is a line that I drew, not stitching. And because I glued in an L shape, I can see beforehand that this is going to give me a nice diagonal stitching line and the right sides are together. Oh, I see, Ayako. You were thinking bee because I was dreaming about bees. I love that thought. Okay, so to sew these pipings together, come on, Claire. I was doing much better in my dream. I'm so glad I was organized last week before I got off the set. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to stitch from this corner to that corner. And with the caterpillar, you can see that you are lined up properly. For those of you who don't know what the caterpillar is, it is this light tablet that is on my table. And it is electric. There is one called the Premium, and it's smaller than this one. And it has the ability to be battery as well. I'm going to be doing a box opening video or an unboxing video. I like to place the squares that I'm going to quilt beneath the pad so that I can see that my pieces are square in an instant by just laying it down, and you can see through it. So that's one of the benefits of it. Another benefit of it is you can cut on this board with a rotary cutter. And normally light tablets are relatively higher from the table. This is really low. So you're not going to hurt your hand from resting your arm as you write on it. But when you're doing the overlap of your binding, you can also confirm that the piece beneath is lined up on the edge of this one and this edge. And that's what we're looking for. We want these edges to be lined up, and then we're going to sew a diagonal stitch going across. And the easiest way to do that is to draw a line. I use the friction pins, but you can also use one of our pressers. This is what I was making today, and that allows me to have a crease instead of using a pin. Hello, Norma Kaufman from San Marcos, California. Welcome to all of you that are coming in as I go. 1 3/4 and 1 1/2. So this is the 1 3/4. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I can test it. I have measuring instruments. Thank you. I'm glad you love the pressers. Yes, a perfect 1 3/4. We'll just do that. And if anyone wants to type that in the chat, I'll flag it, or I think I can pin it to the top. So let's see. This would be good for you though. So this is going to be the one that appears as piping, and you're going to barely see any of it, but it's the one we make bigger, 1 3/4. And then this is the one that you're going to see most of, and I cut it to 1 1/2. That light too bright. Okay, 1 1/2 and 1 3/4. $1.75 is 1 3/4. I see you're just writing it the correct way. Can I pin it? Why can't I pin this? I guess I have to type it. I thought I could pin your guys' things. I guess I can't. All right, I have to type it. I'm not very good at typing right now with my owie. And I didn't get all the Band-Aid goo off. All right. It is more than 2.5, isn't it? But then we're going to sew them together, and each one is going to lose 1/4 inch. Okay, so I'm going to do finger typing. Piping. Piece. Oh, I didn't turn my keyboard on. So you can see how this has hindered my ability to function this week. Piping fabric. Sorry, I don't have the metric measurements in my head. Oops. It didn't let me like make it longer. The last program I used for chatting, I was able to do things like that. And there we go. Okay, Ellen, so we're doing faux piping today. And this is based on, really, you can do any size piping you want, by the way. You do not have to do a 2.5. Come on, you have your own spot down there. Please go there. Thank you. Okay. And I'm not surprised some of you are coming in late because I didn't give you guys the ability to get a reminder. I didn't notify you like a day early or anything. Sorry about that. I promise that I'm not going to wait till next week to figure this out. And that next week, everything will be, well, I can't promise anything, can I? Awesome. And if we cluster all these measurements, thank you so much for doing that. Gita's own. So this is for those of you who are lurking and too shy to participate or came in a little bit late. This is a binding that we're doing, and it appears as if there's piping. And the piping fabric is the bigger fabric, even though you barely see any of it. And I sure hope I'm right after all this talk about it. Well, let's find out. I'm going to change my needle thread to yellow because I mended something. And when I mended something, it reminded me of one of your posts saying, thank you so much for teaching how to mend a lace dress. And I did that in my playlist that's called On the Mend, which I think I did 3 videos in there for mending. There's a lot of questions that I get about what thread should I be using for sewing, because there's so much talk of this is embroidery thread and this is upholstery thread and this is lingerie thread and this is invisible thread. And then you're like, oh, what am I supposed to use to sew my clothing together. And when I was starting in sewing, there was cotton and silk. That's all there was. There wasn't embroidery thread. There was embroidery floss. But basically, any one of these threads can be used to sew a garment together, but you're going to get a different result. Some are more expensive than others as well, which is partly why a lot of people would buy lower price threads to sew garments together unless they were doing something ornamental like a pocket or sewing top stitching along collars, because then you would want your threads to... There's one hair going right in my line of sight. Sorry. You guys are really chatting today. Okay, so I'm going to use my 40 weight polyfast thread, but I could use any thread. You know why I'm using it? Because actually I wasn't going to. Actually, I'm going to use the one that I recommend you do for this particular thing, which is sewing across the diagonal on your binding so that you see less thread. So, and I thought I had already grabbed it. Come on, off a hair. So it's not quite the color. This one is more complementary to what we're doing. So if I were going to have the thread show, well, then I want it to be bigger. And I get this question so often. I really need to be more specific as to why I'm using the threads I use to help people. Geez, where's the paper that I have handy all the time? This was the pattern that you can find in the school, and you'll find it in the Fabrically Speaking Live group, which is free. School's free to join this group. And this is where I put the patterns when I'm live. So you can see these are 3 different kinds of thread. This is the lingerie thread here, which is very thin and very strong. And this is fine. You could use this for the binding. If you have little kids in your house or you're making a quilt for a child, the lingerie thread is ideal. And also for memory quilts because it stretches. And they say it doesn't stretch. They go, no, it doesn't stretch. It just has it breaks. It takes longer to break if you just stretch it out. I'm like, it stretches. Because what it does is it stretches out and it comes back to its original length. And they designed it for lingerie, but not really. They designed it for pantyhose. But really, they didn't. They designed it for parachutes. It's got a long history. And so you'll find this under nylon in our Creative Feet site under products and threads. And the nylon lingerie thread comes in white and black. And you pretty much don't need any of the other colors. Although for my entire career, I've been thinking about bringing in more colors. These are polyester. These are both from Wonderfill. And I absolutely love their thread. And know that when you get it, you're not going to have a bunch of problems with it. And I have used lots of different brands, and some of them shred more than others. But this one is delightful. And it has in their polyfast, the one they use for embroidery, it has a diamond appearance. I'm not really sure how they get this behavior, but what's really nice about it is they have added shine without added slip. And it's important that your thread doesn't just fall through your machine, because then it gets messy and you won't have a straight stitch. You'll have kind of like a inconsistently wobbly stitch, and then every once in a while a big loopy one will come up on the top, or one loop will drop to the bottom and then it'll just break, or you'll have the shredding up above the eye of your needle, all because the thread is just too pretty, too slippery. So I think last week or the week before, I talked about adding like another thread guide to wrap it around again before putting it in through your tension to make really slippery thread, not quite as slippery, and it will behave better. Or you can just buy the thread on our site and you don't have to do that. It works really great. So this is the ideal thread for when you don't want your stitches to show. It's still really strong. I'm surprised how strong it is for the fact that it's only 100 weight. And it comes in 60 colors. So I probably could get another... Ayako, did you get your tweezers? If you got them, that was pretty fast. And we're all out of these right now, but I promise I'll be ordering soon. What a world we live in right now, though. I got distracted. Okay, so this is the Invisifill, and it's 100 weight, so it's super thin. See how you can see it on the brown, but you can barely see it on the yellow? And that's what's going to happen in the seam, but it's still really, really strong. And that has to do with how they twist the thread. Oh, I forgot to put the "we're recording" sign up for the shipping guy. Oh, it's in your box. How exciting. Get to go get it. I'm going to mute myself for 1 second. I got him to go outside so you don't have to hear him. And I think it's a love relationship he has with his shipper. Whoops. So as you're threading your machine, I put my finger down on the thread, and that way as I'm pulling the thread through, it won't slide. And that prevents you from getting it in the wrong place. If you need a little bit more slack, then you ease up, pull a little bit more out, and put your finger back down on it. Tinkerbell's barking. I don't know if you've ever heard Tink bark. No, that's cute. That's like hearing a baby cry. It can be cute. Oh gosh. All right, so now I'm threading the machine. I know which one it is. It's UPS because they always ring the doorbell. I'm not coming down to Phoenix. No. I'm not doing shows anymore. I'm sorry if it's upsetting to you. First off, if you've ever seen me at a show, you know that I am completely surrounded by people. And with COVID, you know, they're requiring masks and things, and I'm not able to talk all day through a mask. I have like little acne right now just from making pressers with a mask. I'm enjoying hearing her bark. She's still barking. I'm not going to stop her because she never barks. At least not when I'm home. All right, looking for a bobbin. This is when we would want to match our bobbin to the Invisifill. But I'm not going to make you wait while I wind a bobbin. So I'm going to use one of my Deco Bob bobbins. Which that was, but it was dark gray. And they have one in yellow. So the Deco Bob colors come in fewer colors. But so far, there's been a color for every project that I've needed. And I don't know where I just put that other bobbin. Oh, I put it here. These are 2 bobbins. That gotta go back in here. It's amazing how little. I guess this is not. I actually decided not to do shows anymore before COVID ever hit. And it's not that I don't love you guys. I really do. It's just there's a large population that never got to see me at a show. And I just don't have a large staff to do all the stuff for me. After I broke my shoulder, it took a lot to get back to being able to do shows after that. Can you guys tell me what I'm looking for? I'm looking for my glasses. All right, no more talk of that. So this is the Deco Bob, and it is 20% thicker than the 100. So it's a little bit thicker. It comes pre-wound on bobbins. You can also buy it in cones, so you can match it to your needle and bobbin. I love that color yellow. It's pretty. All right, so now we're going to sew all our miters that I glued last week together. I don't think I drew all the lines. I didn't. Somebody type something so I don't see, oh no, how sad anymore. I need you guys to give me some smiley faces and thumbs up and show your support for me not doing shows anymore. Know that I do plan on doing some events up here at the Prescott Resort Casino. As soon as I have some other things taken care of, I'll be planning that. All right, so going from corner to corner, we draw a line. And this is much easier to do on the Caterpillar, so I'm not going to resist it. I'm just going to lose these clips. I had the clips holding them on while they dried, but they're dry now, so I don't need the clips anymore. So you can see I can see through the fabric and know that I am going from actual corner to corner. And this may not seem that important to you or you may have been told it's not that important. But I can tell you that this stitch that you sew is very important. On the edge of the binding, if you don't sew that right, it will come in and come out, and that would be on the top of your quilt, and you're not going to like that at all. The important thing is that you overlap each one going the same direction too. So we're going to sew. We got this one with this fabric on top. Come over, and I'm double checking my work from last week because I was really tired by the time I did this last week. Yeah, so they're all overlapping the correct way. And this is an iron erase pen or heat erase. And if you've ever used a heat erase pen, if it gets cold, the fabric itself, after you've erased it, the cold will bring color back. But after you've washed it, it should be fine. Thanks, guys. I know people who lost a lot of money planning. Not enough people. It costs us so much money to travel. Now it's even more. It just keeps getting more and more expensive. All right, let's talk about positive things. What do we have to be grateful for today? I am grateful I woke up. I'm grateful that I was able to dream for an hour and a half, even though I should have been awake. Hi, thanks, Millie. And I am going to be doing more courses for those of you who have everything of mine already, all my physical products that I've invented. And then should there be anything that we cannot do with what I've already created, and I do have plans for a couple more products. So basically what I've done to get ready for this I can't find my pad. So sometimes I have people go, "You talk too much. You know, this podcast takes too long because you talk too much to the people." And I say it's not a podcast; it's a live show. This replaces me going to shows, so you guys are around my table, and now I can have hundreds and thousands of you around my table. And if you're late to the show, and I've already gotten in my car and driven home, you can still watch the show and still feel a part of it. So I have been enjoying doing this live event kind of thing. Every Thursday at 2, we have our own little show. And I will be upping my pre-recorded videos for the rest, you know, like the normal ones that people do. But it's so saturated out there with people doing 5-second videos, you know, trying to rush information into your head. And I think that there's a lot of newbies that could really benefit from these, and they hide behind the scenes and they learn more. I get lots of emails about it, mostly really positive comments about this show. So that's another reason not to do the shows, is because they would make me not do this show, and I never had a weekend home. And now when it's Saturday, when it's Friday, I go, it's Friday. You know, so many years of my life, it was like I was just at a show on Friday. I still need practice too. For those of you who think that I can just like do anything, I have to refresh my memory. Sometimes I have to read my own instructions over again. Aw, Mary, that's so sweet. I feel blessed to have met all of you at shows as well. Those of you that got to see me in person, you know, you all mean the world to me. All right, let's stop being mushy. What I'm doing here is we have our fabrics that are cut the same width, but we need a longer piece. So we're joining. This one is below, and then we have another one that's on top, and they're the same width. So in this corner, they should be an equal square. So when we draw a line from this corner to this corner, when this fabric is then folded over, it becomes a longer piece with a diagonal seam allowance. To sew this seam allowance straight, we set up the satin, or we bring our needle down on the line. So that's the sewing machine needle. And then we move the guide on the foot. So, sorry, I have to be quiet to draw the foot. And there's a wire inside of the white guide. And we want the wire just to the side of the needle. So the needle and the wire touch each other. Then we look at the white guide and we make sure the guide is lined up with that stitching line. And that eliminates having to watch the needle move up and down. The masks, I'll tell you what, I am frustrated as you are. Oh, I didn't turn on one of the lights, so if I look a little tired. But my mask, I just want you to know, every time they go, cloth masks don't work, know that the mask that I designed is not just fabric. It's a 3-layer mask, and it's not just a cloth mask. And it has changed my life making the pressers since I designed that. I no longer suffer with all kinds of horrible respiratory issues after making the pressers. So I am so grateful for the design on it. And I will continue to wear mine whenever I clean the yard or do, really dirty work, as it definitely helps for sawdust for sure. And now off of that topic, I'm now going to sew. So the needle is down and I moved the wire over to the side, and just to be sure that I didn't bend the needle, I turned the hand wheel toward me for one full stitch rotation. And oops, I did. I moved it too far. So now I'm going to move it back by turning this nut, which moves the wire, the guide on the foot, left and right in the opening where the needle is, which this is why some people never even try the satinette foot, because they see that wire and they get a little freaked out. If you've ever had difficulty getting your foot to start on the edge and feed, it's better to start on the fabric. So one stitch so that the feed dogs are engaging, and you know the feed dogs are now handling the fabric, and then you go back. And then you won't have the fabric get curled up on the corners. And then we watch right here, ignore the sewing machine needle. So you can see I'm just keeping the line right next to the white guide, and that the needle is where that is because it just mathematically works out that way. We get to the end and we back up. And don't come back again. So you back up and you leave it up. And that way the weak area of the stitch is not on the edge. So you have a much stronger seam. And now we can cut the 1/4 inch across. However, I don't. I prefer to leave mine open, mine big, and I'm going to explain why. Binding tip needle in first. I don't remember what I said, Pacola. Oh, in from the edge. I'm on a delay. Boy, I really glued this one a lot. So I'm going to peel this open, even though I glued it. And just remember, this is just water soluble stabilizer. That's like the most. I must have been talking a lot when I did it and put way too much on there. Listen to that. It sounds like I'm tearing the fabric. That's got a really good hold, and that's why I say you can put your garments together and try them on. Then I open it up like this. And press, and this is one of my pressers. My favorite one is in the office. It's because I was going to sacrifice it during Christmas. So now we have a square, and it's that time I would use the iron. So if you have a 1/4 inch seam allowance and it's cut on an angle, well, the foot and the feed dogs, it's like it's starting on the edge all the way down that diagonal. And it makes the diagonal harder. So now instead you can just do a little bit. I must have left this open on its side. It closed up. Well, where are my safety pins? Or my pins? There we go. Yes, so I have a lot of friends that are educators, as you know. Some of your dearest educators were my dearest friends, and we'd go to dinner and stayed at each other's houses and collaborated with one another to develop products. And you know, like Nancy Zeman, Eleanor Burns, Sandra Betsina, Kay Wood. I can't say anymore because a lot of them have passed and it gets me emotional. But I was going to say something, I forgot. I got emotional and forgot. Oh well. So does that make sense as to why you would want to leave that in there? Is that now when we sew that together, and you're going to see, it is a lot easier to go up and over that and and it's undetectable. I used to have the fabric stretch a little bit there. I didn't mark this one. I marked it on the other side, which is the same. All right, now you guys just stopped. All of a sudden you were posting and now you're not. So starting in 1/4 inch from the edge, lower the needle. I don't have to turn the guide wire anymore. It's in the proper position. So a couple stitches back. I meant to change cameras and I lowered the needle instead. I don't usually lower the needle. Go back. And something's messy or not working very well. Let me look. So the guide wire, and this is good for you guys. I should do this every once in a while. Teach you guys about what you can do to damage your satin edge foot and how you can get it working again. So the guide wire was pushing against this channel and it shouldn't be. So you see how I did it though? So if you don't have long fingernails, you can take tweezers, but don't grab with pliers and try to bend. So if you bend your wire, there's lots of ways you can do that. You just put something underneath and go like that. This is piano wire, so you can't break it. And where it's supposed to be is halfway between this pad and the channel beneath it. Or somewhere in there. But it wasn't going back. I don't know if it's that or if wow, the tension on the bobbin is really tight. Which means I may have done something, because sometimes I mess around with my machine to make it do things it shouldn't. Kathy Reddy was fun to stay at her house. I stayed with her kitties. Okay, so a couple stitches forward. And she's hilarious if you can ever catch her at a show. Sometimes I don't screw it's like it's not feeding at all. Do I have the feed dogs down? Nope. Barely ever do that. Where's my foot pressure set at? Oh, I have my pressure at 0. Okay. So I had my foot pressure at 0, which means there's no help from the feed dogs. But it's still like not wanting to go back. I don't want to have to take this in for service. Even though it's been needing it for a long time. I've had this happen before and I'm trying to remember what I had done. I did something silly. I closed the bobbin on the bobbin door on the bobbin thread. See, it's going back and forth now. Good. Quit saying you could break something. Hi, Fiona. It's definitely an interesting day. So once again, I peel this apart and I do it while I'm thinking about it. No, I don't. Normally, I just zip it all. But if I had just glued this, it's much easier to pull it back apart. And sometimes I do kind of giggle and go, glue it together to take it apart. So you guys are okay with watching me do the sewing from start to finish instead of having all my binding already ready, show you once and then have you try it? This is also another reason I have you do something like this for the bowl cozies. If you haven't caught my bowl cozy lesson, I use a bowl cozy almost every night. And I have one for my coffee cups I made smaller. I don't know what's going on though. Some's definitely different. I might just need to take it, open it up and clean it out. Oh, I did that. That's that chicken dance. Did I do the chicken dance again? You love your satin edge foot? Me too. I'm sorry my hands look so awful today. Between the Band-Aid and the way they get after making pressers. So you're not supposed to use gloves when you turn wood, because people have gotten gloves stuck in the machine. So no long sleeves, no gloves. And I made myself a hairnet with a pretty silk fabric. And I used it today, and that worked out good. I was walking around afterward, and I'm like, it took me a while to realize I had it on my head. But my bangs were going straight up because it's ours. Oh, thank you. Well, you know, one of the things Clotilda taught me. Clotilda said, the last thing you want them doing is paying attention to your fingers instead of what you're doing. So you want to make sure you moisturize your fingers, you know, have nice soft cuticles. And pretty much every show I've been on, they're like, make sure you moisturize your cuticles before you go live or the night before. So we have this beauty regimen, and I never make pressers on the day I go live, but I did today. I knew I had messed up last week. So here I'm going to show you. Show you my oopsie. See? So I have to take one apart. And this is when you evaluate it and you go, okay, that's just one single part. That was the last one. So the last one I did was the one I did wrong. Double check though. Nope. So this one is right side up. This one is not. Keep going. This one is right side up. So I need to take. Okay, right side up is a single. And this is wrong side up. Couldn't I have done that another way? All right, this one has to come apart. This is where I am not very good. I'm not very good at taking seams apart because I rarely need to do that. I also struggle to remember where I put my seam ripper. Hey, you can count that too, Amy. How many times last season did I need my seam ripper? Found it. You prefer the starting at the front or at the beginning? Thank you, Mary. It was the chicken dance. I haven't really been to that many weddings for that to be stuck in my head. I mean, I've been to weddings, but they don't usually play it. So why is that stuck in my head? Where did I put my glasses? Oh, there they are. What time is it? Okay. Should show you how I do this. So I go down. I kind of pull the fabric so I can see a space and go down, and then bring it back up again. This way you know you're not